In this section of the course, we're going to be studying how businesses make decisions. And a big part of how businesses make decisions has to do with cost. So this little video will introduce some concepts for business cost. You'll hear about business cost in accounting, in economics, and in business strategy. Almost always you want to divide business cost into two kinds, fixed and variable. So let's look at those for a minute and see if we can understand the difference. Fixed and variable cost added together equal total cost. So all costs are either fixed or variable. Now I've put two kinds of businesses here, a hotel and General Motors, the auto company. And I've listed some of their costs. Of course, they have huge list of costs, but these are some of their main costs. A hotel's biggest cost is probably the building. Then they have cleaning, which is labor and supplies, utilities to keep the place cool in the summer, hot in the winter, furniture and fixtures, bedding, and things like that. So let's look at these costs. Which are fixed and which are variable? When we define fixed and variable, it has to do with whether the cost changes depending on how much you produce. For a competitive firm, that's the key decision. You don't get to set price, you don't get to do anything, but you can decide how much to produce, how big your hotel is, how many cars you'll make, etc. So, a fixed cost, the cost will stay exactly the same dollar amount no matter how many you produce. If you produce zero, it will be the same amount. A variable cost will be zero if you produce zero, and then will get more and more the more you produce. So let's look at building. The hotel cost of building is obviously a fixed cost. If you have no one come stay at the hotel or the hotel's full, you have the same cost for building. That's a fixed cost. How about cleaning? Well, cleaning, the cost is the labor and the supplies to make that happen, the vacuum cleaners and everything. That is going to be a variable cost. If no one ever comes and stays at the hotel, you don't have to pay for the cleaning. Utilities, pretty much variable. If the hotel is full, there'll be lots of heat and cooling required. If no one's there, very little will be required. And furniture and fixtures, this would be a fixed cost because you deck out all the rooms and prepare them before the people come. Now, of course, you could say, well, you could only buy the beds and such as you rent the rooms, but that's not the way hotels would do it. So you could see that a hotel has some fixed and some variable costs. General Motors also has fixed and variable costs. If you look at plant and equipment, that's going to be a fixed cost because if they produce no cars, they still have all that plant and equipment they had to buy and install. Labor will be a variable cost. You produce lots of cars, you have lots of auto worker union members on the line making cars. If you produce no cars, you have none. And in fact, you see in the auto industry, we hear about layoffs all the time. When they shut down and reduce production, they lay off people. Materials, that's going to be variable. That's the metal, the plastic, the rubber, everything that goes into making a car. If you make no cars, you have none of that cost. If you make a lot, you have more. Utilities, probably variable too. If the plant is running full out, there'll be lots of utilities. If not, then no cost. Now I'm going to erase this. So that's the concept, fixed versus variable. Now I want to show you a graph that you'll see in the book a lot of times. You'll see this in the book, a graph, and I want to just make sure I explain it properly to you. We look at cost in this section on a graph that looks like this. This side is dollars per unit. What that means is how much does it cost on average to produce a car or a hotel room, etc. And down here is output. How much do we produce? lots of cars or lots of hotel rooms or very little. This is important to understand. We're not talking total cost. Total costs always get higher and higher the more you produce. This is the average cost per unit of output. So let's start with fixed cost. Fixed cost, if we produce 0, are a certain amount. Let's say it's 4. It's 4 if we produce 1. What if we produce 2? Well, the fixed cost per unit is now half as much. So instead of 4, it's 2. What if we produce 3? 4 divided by 3, 1 1/3. So it's down here. What if we produce 4? It's only $1 per unit. So fixed cost goes like this. The more you produce, the lower your fixed cost gets for every unit of output on average. That's why companies that have very large fixed cost like to produce a lot, like to keep their business full. General Motors has high fixed cost and high variable cost, but a good example may be airplanes. Airplanes, huge fixed cost. They like to keep every seat full, and then they can divide that fixed cost over all the people on the plane. Variable costs are very different. Variable cost will go like this. When you start with variable cost and producing just a few, your variable costs are high because you don't have much efficiency. As you get more output, you become more efficient. And so on average, variable costs go down. However, you reach a certain point where costs start to go up, where you have diminishing returns and marginal costs go up. So the costs get higher and higher. I'll tell you some examples about producing Snickers bars at the Waco plant where we produced product. We had to produce more. How did we produce more? We ran overtime. We ran weekends. We ran holidays. That raised our average cost. We had to get more peanuts. Instead of the peanuts we had under contract, we had to buy spot market peanuts. They were more expensive. So when you reach a certain point, it becomes more expensive for variable cost. Marginal costs, which we really haven't talked about yet, but are very important, go like this. Marginal costs go through the very bottom point of the variable cost curve. And marginal cost, you'll find out, is what we'll make decisions on. So this is an introduction, just to look at some of these things as you start to read the text and study it. And we're going to spend 3 or 4 chapters on this so you don't have to understand it all at once. I will see you in class where we'll discuss this some more.